welcome to episode 10 of the Larry and Joe Cybersecurity 101 podcast. Very excited to have Dmitri Thorpe as our special guest today. Dmitri and I have known each other for many years. I think 4 or 5 years now.
We're about 5 years now. Yeah, 5 years. Yeah.
Yep. We actually met on the job. Dmitri and I worked together on a Microsoft Azure project and a few other projects. And I'm excited to talk a little bit about those experiences today for Larry's benefit as well. And before we jump in, just so our listeners get to know you a little bit about Dmitri, if you wouldn't mind, just share a little bit about your background. You've been in IT now for just over 20 years, actually, right? So take us back a little bit about how you got into IT, actually, and also why you wanted to get into IT. You could have got into any kind of field. So why information technology? Yeah.
So I grew up in Philadelphia. I went into the Marine Corps and spent 12 years in the Marine Corps. And I was in an 0321, so reconnaissance. Decided to get out after 12 years. And so the one thing that I really loved in high school and was very good at was computers. So, back then, I think my first computer was a Tandy 1000. And so I think I had 4 megs of RAM, and it was, the best machine in the world. And so I used to love to make simple programs with BASIC and kind of make video games. And so that was kind of my thing. I was a video game junkie growing up as a kid.
Nice.
And so after the Marine Corps, I got out. And so, started the job search and looking at what was, kind of available, because I had the world open to me. I was like, I can do whatever I want to. And I came out at the right time. I came out the .com boom. And so I'm like, okay, wow, computers are really taking off. Great. So applied to several places. My first job was with Sony. And I was on the Sony team in the East Coast, which was only a very small team at that time. And my job was to repair Sony laptops and desktops. Okay. And so they sent me to training, did that. I got my A+, I believe at that time. I think it was the A+. Started, building computers, and that was awesome. I was excited. I was happy, and kind of worked my way up from there. Okay. So was able to then kind of transition to Comcast. And it was a perfect time, like I said, because at Comcast, they just started a program because at that time they were using Windows 3.1, I want to say. And so they really wanted to make a push for everybody to learn Microsoft, because that's the way they were headed. They had a program that for every certification test that you passed, they would give you $1,500. And so, it was, I think we probably had a team of like 20, but there's me and this one other guy kind of looked at each other, and we were really hungry at that time. And so we were like, did they say $1,500 for every test? Not certification, but, like the MCSC, which is 6 tests, but every test. And, the proctor was like, yeah, every test, we're going to give you $1,500. And we were just like, bet. And so we were taking tests like every week, every 2 weeks. We were taking a test. Went pass or fail, we were like taking tests.
Now, can I ask you a question? I've always found when I've been studying for the Microsoft tests, or really any certification exam, the process of studying for it has been so beneficial. The exam is almost just like something nice to have, but like the like learning and growing through that has been some of the richest growth of my career. The studying process is incredible, right? And you learn so much because kind of the way the exams are written, like it's either this way or this way. And if you answer it wrong, that tells me, I'm never supposed to deploy it that way. I'm supposed to do it this way.
Right.
And it's an invaluable thing, right? So my question to you is, and this is for Larry's benefit, have you personally found that the certifications themselves have helped your career, or have you found that the learning and studying process has been more beneficial as you look back over 20 years?
I would say it's a little bit of both. For me, the certification test, so you have your self-study practice exams. And I look at that as kind of repetition. You get the questions and you just go over the questions and you get them right or wrong. Mm-hmm. And then you focus on the things that are wrong. And so you keep taking these tests and you kind of put it in your head. It's like, learning anything else. The more you do it, the more that it sticks in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And so you really, for me, it helps me with the terminology. It helps me with commands. I'm like, okay, I've seen this command. You memorize it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, there's also nothing more important than a lab. So, I try to always set up a lab to where I can practice it. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
what's this command? What's this command? Let me try this command. Does it work? Oh, okay, yeah, it does it.
Yeah.
And the thing with Microsoft, there's probably 3 or 4 ways to do the same thing, which is kind of funny. Is you can do the same thing 3 or 4 different ways, which makes it a little bit difficult. But I think it makes you the good thing about certification exam. It gives you all the examples of the way that you can do it, and so you can pick out which kind of which way that you want to go.
Right. Now you kind of went up through hardware first, and this is kind of a classic debate. Larry and I have been going back and forth on this for several episodes on the show. Is it really necessary to kind of go up through hardware, PC support, server, networking, and then go into security, or can you really get into being a SOC analyst, right? And kind of jump ahead and go right into it? Or do you really need those kind of fundamental, kind of components? Because Larry, he's super excited about the security side of this. He wants to get in there and hack and be an ethical hacker, right?
Yeah,
So
for Larry, I don't think that it's important for him to know the hardware side of things, really at all.
Mm-hmm.
I would say for Larry, the most important thing is to start with networking, because that's where you kind of get into your commands,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
and so networking is where I think the basis that Larry needs to understand. Yeah, if you look at it, it's the classic bad guy, good guy. The hackers, want to get in to your computer or to your network to get information or to screw around. And so, you have to know how they're getting in. You have to know what holes they're getting in on.
Yeah.
And then you have to know, okay, I have to block them. And then it's like a chess game from there, because just because you block this doesn't, so it's really a chess game. And I believe that, really good hackers enjoy a challenge. Like they it's the chase, it's okay, he blocked this. Okay.
Right.
Let me see what Larry can do now. I'm going this way, and it's a constant game. And I think it's a game of respect,
It is, and you really can't sleep, right? Because I noticed just this morning, there's a Palo Alto vulnerability that if you have SAML turned on the internet facing side of your Palo Alto, right now the U.S. Cybersecurity departments are basically saying that foreign hackers are going to start exploiting that any day now. So you can't rest, you can't sleep. You gotta prioritize vulnerability management, right? Because they'll just index everything you have, and they'll just wait for that vulnerability to pop, and then it's a race. It's on, right?
Yeah,
so if you're in their crosshairs, you just can't rest, right?
And it's funny. It's funny. Larry and it's a security. So I'm an infrastructure guy. So they're security people can be a pain for us infrastructure guys. They can be a real pain and people that you don't get along with. And the reason I'm saying that is in jest, but
Right.
security guys want to turn off everything.
Right.
By nature, they lock this down. And it makes the infrastructure guys hard because we have the complaints from the end users that I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. And so they want a little bit laxer security that gives them the power to do the things that they want to do. So it's kind of, the infrastructure guys go back and forth with the security guys. I'm like, come on, man, you can't, they're getting pissed and you can't block this. You can't, change this.
Yeah.
But the security guys kind of at a disadvantage to hackers because, it would be, it's like, I'm a Marine, so it's not like the personal one-on-one between, Larry and the hacker. The hacker is really using everybody in the company, especially the weakest people in the company, to Larry. They're like, okay, we're not going to go through you. We're going to go through the weakest person who's going to click on this stupid link that says you won $10 million for life, And so, Larry's at the disadvantage of everybody in the organization.
That's right.
To have a basic level of security knowledge.
Can you ever win in security? If you're a Marine and you're given a mission, right? And the mission is go take that airfield, go secure it, go get the hostages, do the mission, right? Can you ever really accomplish the mission in information security?
No, I don't think that you can. I mean, it's no way. There's so many different applications. There's patches, it's no way. It's ever changing every week and every month. There's a new patch, there's a new revision, and I think companies that roll out software and applications, and patches do the best that they can to test it beforehand and get it to a certain level. But, it's, nothing's ever tested to, the final degree. So, now, it's impossible.
You're a senior IT leader. You've been a manager. You've been a director. How would you define success if you were given responsibility to manage a team that's responsible for infrastructure and security and keeping it secure? What does success look like? Is it never getting hacked, or is it okay if we're hacked, we respond in a methodical, we've got an incident response plan and we just execute this thing. We get them out as quick as possible. What does success look like?
I would say for me, it's a two-prong approach. I think it depends on what your organization, what business your organization is. Of course, if you're banking or something like that, you have to have like the highest level of security, or kind of personal information. You have customer information that's very secure. So for me, I think it's one, and I'll just use Microsoft to look at the dashboard and know that I'm in the green. I'm for the most part 95% in the green. There's a few things that are in the yellow. I want very few things very few things in red. And if they're in red, I want to know why they're in red. But I think for a manager or director, it's important to be able to look at reports and to know kind of where you stand.
Okay.
Because if you know where you stand, you have a sense of, can something go really south or can something go, really wrong?
Gotcha. And so having like measurements and objectives that everybody's kind of measured to, and it's like, okay, as long as you're kind of staying green and staying up there, then okay, gotcha.
And it, if for knock on wood, you get hacked, it's at least you can say that, okay, we were I feel that my team was taking these steps. But I think you also have to have a good plan on what you do if you get hacked. And it's just like backups. You have to have these plans, and everybody on the team has to know what to do and when to do it. And that's just basic, security things. And that's something that you have to go over every quarter. It's just, you don't have to spend a lot of time on it. It's like, okay, if this happened, what would you do? And you kind of ask, make it fun, have a lunch and learn. Okay, this happened. What who's responsible for this? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And make it fun for them, that they know what to do if something happens, okay, we need to, lock down this land, you do this, do we have backups? Okay, who tested backups? Let me see the backup log sheet, who signed off on it? You didn't sign off. Oh, no one signed off on it in 2 weeks. Okay, well, we're going to do this, the whole team gets punished because, You
know what I love about that? Trust but verify.
Yeah.
Your guys are saying, hey, we're getting the backups done, Dmitri, it's getting done. And you're like, okay, show me the log.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, I trust you, but show me the log, because so many times, I can't tell you how many times I've as a consultant gone in and asked to see the backups.
Yeah.
And I'd say 30% of the time the backups are failing, and there's been a systemic acceptance of, well, we have other priorities. It's not, that big of a deal, or we can't figure it out. We don't want our management to know that we don't know how to get it fixed.
Right.
Really, no one really knows how important backups are until you need the backup.
Right.
And when IT can't restore that backup, that's a bad day, because you're
Oh,
talking about
it's a horrible day. Yeah.
permanent data loss, right?
Yeah.
That a
It's a
business can't.
horrible.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Larry, what's top of your mind? What are you burning to ask Dmitri here?
My teacher just put us on to something called Field Nation. So actually, it's kind of like a thing. Like they'll call you if they need you for a couple of hours or something to work. My issue is that I work during the weekday, so most 99% of those jobs are during the weekday, and then a lot of them are mainly hardware things, which I don't have the CompTIA
A+ and stuff like that.
the A+ and stuff for the hardware stuff. It's not that I don't understand it or know it,
Right?
You know what I mean? So in saying that, speaking with my teachers in class, they were like, the best thing is to get out in the field and get some work done so you can actually start getting the feel for it. So I just kind of wanted to know your perspective on that.
I guess my first question would be, how do you like tinkering? Are you a tinkerer? Do you like to take stuff apart and put it together? And, if you have that personality, then it's really easy and you would learn it like so fast, because there's not much to a computer. You have a motherboard, you have a processor, you have RAM, you have a video card, you have, soundboard. Pretty much everything is, kind of in the board now. It's not like it used to be when I first started. There was, 100 cards in a computer. Yeah. Now everything's integrated in, kind of the motherboard, but there's really only 5 or 6 components of any computer now, of a modern computer.
I really want to get into like what you said, some of the networking stuff, and just get hands on a lot of that right now, because in class we're an MTA server plus. So actually I just built a server. Are we going away from just regular servers that people would actually have in the office to virtual servers?
The industry changes. I'm going to, throw out a number of 10 years. When I first started, you had an individual server for every application that you had. Like, if this application's coming out, marketing needs this, okay, I'm going to order a server, and then they'll turn around and next week, marketing had another application. Okay, I'm ordering a new server. And it was great for IT people like me, because one, we loved getting our hands on a new server, ordering a new server and, buying the latest and greatest. And then it changed from individual servers per application to kind of, okay, we're going to put multiple applications on a server. And so we're like, okay, and then it changed at some point to virtual servers, VMware, and we were like, oh, wow, that's changing the world, and then VMware now to cloud. I think it's always going to change. I think that every company is going to have servers in-house.
It kind of gets back to what you're saying before, Dmitri. If you have that tinker kind of mindset, then no matter what happens with the industry, you'll roll with it, because you just love learning. You love the same excitement that you got when you got that new server. Oh, let's check out that new Dell R710. Let's see what it's got. Oh, this is funky how they did this, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden with VMware, it's like, oh, that's wild. What's going on there? And then now with Azure and the cloud, it's like, if you have that kind of tinker mindset, you'll adapt and you'll overcome. You'll figure stuff out, right? And that's probably the best overall attribute for a technical person to have, right? And then you have like the management side of things, where you just need to be, a likable person that gets enough of it and can rally people around. Dmitri, you're probably one of the few guys I know that is both an extremely competent technical person, but you're also a really good manager that people want to work for. You kind of have both, and that's pretty rare. Usually people are management or they're technical. And what I loved about working with you is like you wanted to roll up the sleeve and get in there and get the hands-on too. Like when you hired us as a consultant, you're like, Joe, I don't want you to just do it. I want to see you do it, and I want to get in there, and we would work together on it.
Right. I want to take notes. Right. Exactly.
I can't tell you how fun those sessions were. I enjoyed every one of those. It was a tremendous amount of fun, and it's that makes work easy when you really enjoy what you do, when you enjoy that stuff. And Dmitri, so right now you're open to opportunities right now. What's that ideal kind of position that you're looking for?
But yeah, I'm always looking for that next opportunity, and so I definitely know what my niche is and what I want to do. I think that for me, I've always had a dream since I've started. My dream job has always been to work for Microsoft, and so for the past 20 years, I've applied to so many jobs at Microsoft, and I still do, and I still will. Because I don't think that you ever stop chasing that dream, and it hasn't, 20 years of not getting in hasn't really soured me. It's like, okay, I'll do it. I'll look next week and I'll see what's up there. I've had an interview and came really close. I thought it was really close and, got really far in the interview, but it just didn't, the final didn't work out. But at least I know that, hey, I have the ability to, to at least get that far in the interview process. So you kind of have your dream jobs,
right?
That you always dream about. And I think that every IT person should think about that. It's like, okay, what companies, what organization, it doesn't have to be, what organization do you want to work for? So, I've always wanted to work for Microsoft, but I really have a heart for nonprofits as well. So I've been able to travel the world and go to a lot of third world countries, that some of the basic things that we take for granted here in America, as far as, computers and information, they really don't have. And so it's nice to be able to share your knowledge and experience with them, especially the kids, to, give them, a 5-year-old laptop that, that you think is super slow, but for them is the best thing in the world.
And that probably reminds you of those days when you got that Tandy, that 4 megs of RAM, and you got to do that basic program. Because if that kid, if they're interested and they have that in them, the sky's the limit. I mean, they could go anywhere, and they just need that one little thing, right?
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I have a dream job of Microsoft, but I'm just open to any opportunity that for me is kind of fulfilling, that I feel that I'm helping somebody. That's what kind of motivates me, is to help somebody. And so it doesn't need to be a corporate job or anything. So I'm pretty, I'm a beach guy. I'm pretty open to whatever comes my way.
I saw you worked for Habitat for Humanity for a little bit. Great organization, right?
I got a question for Dmitri. So right now, tomorrow, actually, I'm gonna attempt my test for the MTA security, and then I'm jumping from security to, in about another 5 weeks, I'm gonna go ahead and try to do my I think it's my test in Linux. I'm not going to take the Server Plus yet. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do those two first. And this is what our teachers are telling us, to do those first and then go back to your MTA server and all that. I just want to get your view on that.
I think that's a server first. I think that's a solid plan. I wouldn't have any problem with what they're telling you. I mean, everything ties into one another, in its own way. So it really doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter with some things on kind of the steps that you take, or you can't jump forward and then jump back, because I think you can get lost. But I think what they're telling you is good enough, because with your Linux, you're going to get a strong foundation in your commands, and then, like, that's something great to learn before you really step into networking, so yeah, I think they're giving you pretty, really good information and, solid information on where to start. Yeah.
Good start.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, one advice I would give to you, though, is that, I've seen lots of people do this, is that you can get to a point where you can pass a test, but you still don't feel like you have the grasp of it. And so there's two things you can do. So one is you can peg that teacher and be like, okay, look, I can answer this question because I know the question and I know the answer, but it doesn't click for me. It doesn't click for me. Or two, have a lab, have it yourself, and figure it out. It's like, okay, this isn't clicking. Why isn't this clicking? Why can't I can answer it, but I don't understand quite what it means. I don't understand why it's doing this. And so for me, that's the key to an IT person. An IT person not only knows it, but understands why this, why this is the way that it is, or this is why you do this, or this is what you look for. So there's that book smart person, and then there's this hands-on person. If you can meld them together, that's a perfect IT person right there.
That's what I'm learning to do. So do you feel that the language between the computer language is kind of similar, even though I know Linux is a different language than Windows, but in general, like
I mean, it's the commands are commands, and I remember going back and a professor told me, everythings are ones and zeros, and that's still true to today. You never see ones and zeros and things anymore because of GUI. Everything's GUI.
Yeah.
But nothing has changed since day one of computers. If you really go back to it, and so you're going to have root and all of that's the same. It's everything's the same. Directory structures are the same. I don't care if it's a Mac or a Windows. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty much the same. It's a different flavor, but it's the same. All right.
So hey, just real quick before we go, Dmitri, because I know we do have I don't know how many listeners, and probably a lot of new listeners. What should be their first step in getting into the IT world? What should be their first step that they should look if they're looking for jobs and interviewing, and the do's and don'ts?
So I will say IT is so big of an umbrella. My first advice to a new person is to find what in IT you really love. Don't necessarily follow the money. And so like my first thought of IT when I went to college was I was going to be a programmer, because programmers made a hell of a lot of money. And I went there and I hated it and I struggled at it. I mean, I could get a C, but I mean, I really hated programming. Like looking at lines of code, and I hated it, and it drove me absolutely crazy. And I could have gotten a degree and got by with a C, but I just hated it. And I had a really good mentor and professor that was like, this isn't for you. He's like, why don't you think about taking some infrastructure networking classes? And I did, and I mean, instantly started getting A's. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay. I was like, well, how much do they, as a young person, how much do they make? And you're like, oh, that's good. Like, okay, I'll do this. And, I have less study time. And, so I was lucky enough to have someone to kind of guide me in the right direction. But find what you want to do in IT, whether it's security, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's programming, whether it's development, find what you want to do, because it'll make your life and your career much more enjoyable. I think that anybody who does something that they really don't like, or what it wears on you, and after time, it's not going to work. And the second thing that I would say is be willing to take a step back before you take a step forward. So everyone has a desire to get a job and to get the maximum amount of money that they can. It's a natural thing. And if the world was like that, everybody would be happy. But if it's something that you really like and something that you really enjoy, look at the bigger picture and be willing to take a step back to say, okay, this may be an entry-level job, but I'm with an organization that I think I really like. They're a good organization that will, tell you if it's the right position for you. And to be willing to take a step back to take a step forward. That's my advice.
Got it. Yeah, that's very solid information. Thank you.
Well, Dmitri, we've really enjoyed having you on the show. This is really good. We'd love to have you back on as well. Keep us posted and everything with
anytime.
Where you end up, for sure.
Anytime. We can do another podcast when I'm in Hawaii.